Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Parker Emerald, and this is The Conversation Station. Today's guest has dedicated his life to helping people heal from pain, stress, and trauma using Functional Symmetry, a system of healthcare that he has mastered over 10 years of practice. He is not only a skilled practitioner, but also a curious learner who loves to explore the connections between physics, mathematics, and the human body. He is always eager to share his insights and wisdom with others who want to learn more about functional symmetry. He is a kind-hearted, compassionate, and professional person who makes a positive impact on everyone he meets. Let's give a warm welcome to the one and only Mr. Gabriel Moss. Welcome on, Gabriel.
Hey, Parker. Great to be here.
And this is my second in-person episode. The last one I did, I had the fun experience of dealing with, I had a 10-year-old interface, right,
Oh, okay.
for audio.
Okay.
And it happened to completely fail. And in the episode, it's like, hello. It was completely unusable.
Oh, wow.
I had to salvage the audio from the cameras. Funny thing is that episode has like the second most listens because it's a guy I know personally from the youth center.
Okay.
And so all the people at the youth center wanted to take a listen. And it's the one episode that has terrible audio. But yeah,
right.
I'm hoping that this time this guy won't fail. It shouldn't.
It looks great. It looks like a really good piece of kit.
It is. I mean, for $150, it's the best you can get. Why don't you just tell the audience a bit about yourself, you know, who you are, and yeah.
Sure. Well, let's see. I think my real journey of helping others with healing started when I was 20 years old, and I was drooling in a mental hospital. I was like on meds. It was so dark and so scary and so harsh. And I didn't know what to do to get myself out of that predicament. That was a really challenging situation. But what I did is I actually talked with a mentor of mine. So I called up a mentor I had named Andre Seltzer, and he's a world-renowned healing arts practitioner, just an amazing human being, intuitive fellow. And he gave me some wisdom that I really never forgot. And he said, Gabriel, you cannot heal for yourself. Like, you just can't do it. You can't do it for you. You've got to do it for the people you'll be able to help on the other side. And so, I don't know, that shifted something deeply in me. So that kind of impetus to not only heal and get better and put my psyche back together for myself, but for the people I'd be able to help later, that was a really, really important step for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite interesting. So what is functional symmetry?
Oh, well, there's a little bit more in between,
Okay.
you know, drooling at 20
Okay.
in a mental hospital and where I came here.
Take us there.
But you know, I always found mentors. I was always blessed with finding really, really high caliber people that I trusted more than myself. And that process of listening and following their advice and guidance and insight to get me to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. And probably the most significant step for me was meeting my teacher, the person who showed me functional symmetry. His name's Dr. John Shear, and you could look him up. You won't find anything on him because he's a recluse. He's kind of like Yoda, you know, out on Tatooine, where you got to fly your cruiser and it.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, it's a little bit like that. So I met him, and I started to get help from him because he's a chiropractor, and by the time I met him, he had taken it way beyond chiropractic. He was using his intuition and specifically muscle testing to understand what's going on behind the scenes of why people were struggling with their conditions. And I would go in there with a list of like 15 things that I was struggling with, and I'd leave with maybe 3 that weren't totally resolved. He's like a miracle worker. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Show me what you do, John. I want to learn. And what he ended up doing is say, well, he said no initially. He's like, no, I can't teach. I got nothing to teach. But he died, and then came back to life. He had a near-death experience he had an aneurysm, and after that, he had to stop practicing, but he had time to teach me. And so he took me under his wing and broke my ego in two and helped me put myself back together again, get off of meds, and finally find my authentic self inside, and showed me the tools of not only how to be able to do that myself, but how to help others do the same thing.
That's awesome. So I'm curious. So you were on meds and then got off of them, and this journey is just incredible. And so, I mean, it's just kind of crazy.
Yeah,
and one
it is
thing
kinda
that's
crazy.
crazy to me is how I mean, you hear stories like this where sometimes the thing that someone needs to get healthy is to stop taking medication.
Yeah, there's so many situations where I think that could be the case. Now, I will say this, that it's unwise to just, without support, without guidance, without someone who's knows what the hell they're talking about, to just get off of psychotropic medications, because what happens is there's these, it creates a number of different compensating mechanisms that are in the brain that they start. For example, you take something like risperidol, which is what I was on, and it will make itself necessary. Like you essentially have much further to fall if you stop taking it than you would if you were to taper down or to work with someone who's a professional. So I definitely wouldn't recommend anybody just get off their meds, and that works well. The reason I was able to, after like 13 plus years, was because I was under the guidance of my teacher, and because I understood the guiding principles of what was influencing me to feel crazy in the first place, and to bit by bit get off of it and address what was coming up. So that's the only reason I was able to do that successfully, I believe.
Quite intriguing. So as this journey progressed, I'm just curious what took you to where you are today, and then what is functional symmetry, and just take us through that, man.
Sure, man. Wow. So functional symmetry, I think the best way to understand it is it's a system of healing that does three things really well. It is able to assess what are the dynamics behind a condition. Let's say someone is struggling with a mood condition. Let's say they're depressed. For example, I had this client who had a good life, but she was suicidally depressed. She was like, I don't know why, but I just want to kill myself. I don't want to be around anymore. And it was like the serious deal. Like, oh my God, can you imagine feeling that way? God, it's like, I know how that feels. That's that's intense. That's no fun, right?
Yeah.
And so what I did is I checked in, why is that? People may have all kinds of different reasons. There were some emotional reasons. There were dynamics with her parents growing up that kind of contributed to it. But in the end, the result was all of that. The result of all of that is that her body didn't understand what to do with serotonin. Her body was confused about how to produce serotonin and the metabolic pathway that serotonin goes through. So serotonin starts off as tryptophan, which you get in protein. It's like one of the essential amino acids. And then the body converts it to 5-HTP. And then it converts that into serotonin, and then it converts that into melatonin. That's this metabolic pathway, they call it, of how to get that ingredient. And so because her body was confused about how to produce that ingredient, that essential ingredient for positive mood, serotonin, once I showed her system, and the next thing that we help do is reduce the friction. So if there's a lot of friction in the system and interference with the production of serotonin, she's not going to get as much serotonin as she would benefit from. And so I helped her system reduce the friction to that process, eliminate the information faults that were in the way of that. And then she was able to, at that point, register, I understand what serotonin is. I understand how to produce it. This isn't her verbally. This is her system behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm testing all of that with muscle testing to see like what's happening behind the scenes. And once it was able to work, she was like, called me the next day. Oh my God, I'm living life. I feel amazing. Do you want to kill yourself? Like, what's going on? No, I don't. She was fine. So it's little things like that. Once we understand the details and the dynamics behind the scenes, and we're able to reduce the friction to living effectively as a body, as a being, there's amazing things that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's just crazy to me. And one thing that I've been blown away by personally is muscle testing. It's infuriatingly accurate. Like one time we were at the store, I wanted to buy something. My mom's like, "Okay, let's muscle test that versus an apple," and I just put it back. I didn't even try. I'm like, And it is crazy how the body does just know if you're picking up a pack of M&Ms and a apple and a bottle of bleach, it is quite interesting.
Yeah, there's a real capacity for the nervous system to convey what the effect is to the body of various substances. That's one of the simple ways and important ways of using muscle testing. But there's a lot of other things that we could check. Do you want to try? Want to do a little
let's do it.
We didn't
some
plan this,
testing.
but let's try it out.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm ready to try some muscle testing.
So what do you want to know about what's going on with you, or what are you curious about?
I don't know. That's a good question right now. I have no idea.
No idea. Anything troubling you? It doesn't have to be specific or anything. Any troubles?
Anything troubling me right now? Honestly, not really.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm doing great right now.
Amazing.
I mean, well, I'm gonna throw this out there. So I've been talking to this. I've been putting some stuff out on the mentorship group I'm on about this. But the past 2 weeks, I've been getting incredibly intentional about how I spend my time. Today I overslept a little, but I still had a schedule to follow and I just moved things down because I had open time in the evening. And so I got up a little late and I just slotted things down, but being intentional. And I struggled with it for a while because that's the entire part of the program is be intentional with how you spend your time. And I struggled with it because I was trying to do it in a spreadsheet and that's just wildly inefficient and wildly annoying. Yeah. All I do is I can't use my phone, it's right there, but I grab my phone, open up the Notes app, and I say, waking up this time, and then from this time to this time, I'm showering. From this time to this time, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And I schedule in breaks, and I schedule in 5-minute gaps of time between the things, so that if it runs late or something. But then when I take a break, it's not. I feel a lot better than if I would just chose to take a break because it's scheduled. I know I'm not missing out on what I need to do, and I'm getting it all done.
Nice.
And that intentionality completely has changed how I've been feeling and a lot of that.
Wonderful.
But that's my experience. But let's go back to muscle testing. I don't know right now.
Okay. Is there a food that you're eating that you're like, I don't know if this is good for me or not? Maybe it's okay, maybe not. Any curiosity about that?
Yes, I definitely have some curiosity behind that.
What's a food?
What is a food? I eat food.
Yeah. Okay. Food check.
Let me think for a second because
Sure.
there's so many different things that I could question myself about. I mean, basically, because if I did something, let's just go something real easy, okay?
Okay.
I just got this new protein powder yesterday. I know it's not that great, but I got it because we were out and I needed something for my smoothies. But that protein powder,
okay,
we'll go with that.
Got it. Okay, so let's see here. Let me see this hand here. So the left hand is more honest. We want to have the honest hand talk to us here. So put your pinky and thumb together and hold them together, right? There you go. See you feel the lock in there like that? It's like a circuit of energy. It just sticks, right? It's truth. All right, strength and truth. All right, say my name is Parker. Go ahead and say that.
Your name is Parker.
No. Say my name is
Parker.
Yeah, hold. See, congruent. So what you're doing is you're congruent with that statement, meaning the software that runs your body is not weakened by that, right? All right, so say my name is
Pablo.
Pablo.
My name is Pablo. What the heck?
Try. See, you can't. It's there's a weakness that influences that your body gets weak in response to lack of truth, lack of congruence, lack of coherence, and so think of that protein powder. Okay. And I don't know. Maybe this protein powder is good. I don't know.
Neither do I.
No one knows. We don't know until we test, right? So
it's from
hold strong.
Grocery
Think of this protein powder. All right. Think about it and say, this is good for my body.
This protein powder is good for my body. Oh,
Oh
wow.
man, it would be better. Thinking of them, it'd be better to have this protein powder than no protein powder.
It would be better to have this protein powder than no protein powder.
Okay. Okay, it would be better to have this protein powder than no protein powder. Wow, better to not have that protein powder. Now think of that really good protein powder. I don't know, like whatever the ones you're like, oh yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've had like
Have you had
three
any?
different varieties.
3 different varieties. Think of the one that you felt might have been ideal.
Okay, I'll go with the one that tasted terrible, but it's probably better.
Okay, think of that. This protein powder is good for my body.
The Coast protein powder is good for my body.
Interesting. Body's not into the protein powder, I guess.
Well, let's test protein powder in general.
Protein powder. There is a. First of all, do I have your permission to access information in your field of frequencies?
Oh yeah, I guess.
All right. Okay. All right. The final reveal, right? And so I'll ask your system: is there any protein powder that's pre-protein powder, soy protein powder, whey protein powder? I don't know. Rice. I think there's rice protein powder now. So would your body benefit from, at the appropriate time, rice protein powder? No. Would it benefit from soy protein powder? No. Would it benefit from whey, like high quality organic whey protein powder? Yeah. So your system could handle that. It could assimilate it. It could use it for its own benefit. Would your body benefit from pea protein powder? No. So whey. You can try whey protein powder.
That's the way to go. No, I mean, that's actually funny because of all the protein powders I thought of, I was like, wait, like of all of them, the one I would prefer is whey because it's also known to not taste like completely terrible.
Yeah, like chalk, like you're drinking like a liquid chalk.
No, I mean, no. So this one my mom bought that's plant based. I don't know what's in it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I source my protein powder from the highest quality store. It's called Grocery Outlet. But it tastes like well, because some of these protein powders they just kind of dissolve into it, but this stuff it doesn't really dissolve into your smoothie or your drink, and so it's literally like you're drinking chalk.
Yeah,
and it's pretty terrible. So now I know I just got to find a high quality whey protein powder.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Now this is crazy.
This is thinking about this is just one little example. There's so many ways that there's a wealth of information that you have that most people don't have access to, right? Because they don't know the language of muscle testing, and yeah, there's so much I want to share about it. But do you have any more questions or?
I don't know. I mean, if you have things to share, because right now I'm just all ears. My mind is kind of blown right now.
Okay. Well, if you think about it, what's the authority on the subject of what's good for your body?
My body?
Exactly. Your body. Your body really knows. Your body knows its own history. It knows what it's sensitive to. And there are books that are out there, right? You can look and see the various books. There's probably thousands of books on diet, and they all have their own formula for how to come to the things that are good that your body would benefit from eating. However, none of those sources, no matter how many credentials, no matter how many PhDs, no matter how many studies they've done on other people, none of them know what it is that your body actually would benefit from, would actually enjoy eating, could actually assimilate without any burden to the system. And if you have someone, a friend, or a practitioner that can communicate with that authority on your body and relay that information back to you, that's a tremendous treasure. That's a valuable piece of information. So yeah, that's one of the three things. I think I said initially there were three, and I said two, and that was the third one, is that with the functional symmetry, what we can do is we can relay back to the person the minimum amount of things that you need to do in order to get what you want.
Crazy. No, so for the people at home, I want you guys to do this for me. do this, right? What I just did earlier. And I want you to try to pull that apart and realize how strong that is.
Yeah, it can be really strong.
And so I'm just like it is strong. And so that's what I was curious about. I'm like, wait, is he just pulling harder? But I can't. It's very hard to do to pull hard enough to just separate. So God, that stuff blows my mind. That stuff is just crazy. You wouldn't. I think that we're conditioned by whatever you want to call it, the modern society, to assume that we know nothing about ourselves.
Oh my God, Parker! I think that is just a profound statement. It's so true. We're think about the authorities that are out there, right? And then back in the day, with the Inquisition, etc. The Inquisition hasn't. The impulse of the Inquisition hasn't stopped. There's any authority that's out there, any guru or teacher or the American Medical Association, or fill in the blank with whatever institution. Their job is to claim authority, and the fact that your body knows your history, knows your chemistry, and is in the fact, how could it not? It's orchestrating you. It's creating this. It's taking matter in the form of food and water and sunlight, and then making you. Like that requires such a degree of coordination and a degree of consciousness that
Absolutely.
you can't get a higher authority than your system and the frequencies that your system is using to communicate with itself.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to take some of the lessons of these experts but don't just trust it blindly. So if because I'm getting into working out, if someone says, "Hey, this is gonna do this for you," like I'm gonna like the best thing I can probably do for my system when I hear that this is gonna have a positive impact is to try it and see. But if it's something like diet based, I mean, we just showed how with muscle testing you can do some crazy things. Also, because I know that when my mom told me you could muscle test, I mean, who isn't going to be skeptical, right?
It's
okay. Try it. Go grab.
Okay. Wait. Let me just give a preface here. All right. So when I was studying with my teacher, when I started trying to muscle test, I was wrong. It took a lot to get to the state where my muscle testing, it was accurate enough for me to feel confident in its results. So there's a lot of agendas that we have. There's assumptions that we have, and a lot of times these can be filters in between our actual the result of yes or no based
between
on
ourselves and the truth.
Yeah, and the truth, exactly. So there's a process of increasing the state of impartiality. There's a really important process, at least in my training, and so I don't want to just say just go muscle test and then it'll all be true.
Absolutely.
It's still.
But my point is try it, because what my mom has had us do is at the grocery store. Okay, go grab the processed bread.
Yeah.
And then go grab an organic apple.
Okay.
Hold the organic apple to your chest. And then just put out your arm and have someone push it down. And it is just interesting because it will give you my point is don't necessarily go out there and live your life based on these results
without training.
But just go and see the fact that this your arm will go down. You can resist as hard as you want, but your arm will go down with the bread, and it's going to be a lot harder to push it down with the apple.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's very interesting, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And
so you mentioned working out, right?
Yeah.
Do you think your body would know exactly what workouts it would need in order for it to get to reach the end result that you're looking for? So you can imagine, for example, you can get an image of you, like, I don't know how ripped you want to be, like, I don't know if you want to, whatever the level that is, but there's a process that we could go through to ask your system, what are the exercises? What are the daily practices that you could do starting now that would get you to that state.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
Man, it is crazy how informed the body is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to talk about information as a whole. The most reliable information for what is true for your body, like if you break it down, because I think when you say your body just knows, it sounds a little crazy and a little arbitrary. But if you break it down and say, okay, so if you were to go to someone, if you wanted to go and find out who was the expert on how this coffee cup works, okay? Well, your number one source is going to be whoever made this coffee cup.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
And so if you want to know how to get the result you're looking for, what creates that result is your body. And so if you find someone who is trained and knows how to ask the right questions,
right,
then you're gonna get, if the person knows what they're doing, you're gonna get good results. And so I guess go ahead.
Let me tell you what's crazy, right? So we've got supplements, right? There's a whole industry built around supplementation and these things that we take in order to give us more wellness, more health, and in fact they're quite often really helpful, right? However, there's often something missing in the equation of people who are testing and using muscle testing or whatever various methods to assess what supplements to take. Because what supplements to take and how much to take when is a really good use of muscle testing. But there's another layer you can use, which is you can say, hey, is there some friction? Is there some inefficiency in the body that's preventing the isolation of these materials? Let's say these supplement of like vitamin C, what have you. It's good to take vitamin C, right? Read all the literature.
Yeah.
But maybe if you took a little time and you focused on talking with the master control system, which is what we call the part of the body or part of the consciousness that runs the body. If you talk to that part of you and you work through any resistance or friction or inefficiencies in the processes the body uses from taking food and isolating vitamin C, then you may not even need to take vitamin C. You simply upgrade the body.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy to think about things like this, and it's interesting because you look at the world and you're actually thinking about it in the simplest, the way that makes the most sense, but the world has conditioned us not to think that way for whatever those reasons may be. I mean, that's a conversation for a different day, but we have been conditioned not to trust ourselves to use a Band-Aid solution like vitamin C on boosting your systems. But vitamin C, like if you're sick, it's probably good to just take some vitamin C, and give your body more to work with. I mean, but if you struggle from a deficiency in one of these categories, the doctor is just Dr. Martin Doctor Man is just gonna give you a prescription for, okay, you're vitamin D deficient and vitamin C deficient. Take those two, okay. But if there are people that can go to the root and solve that issue,
right,
then that's a completely different game.
It totally opens up a whole playing field. Exactly, it's a different game.
It is hard when we've been raised in a society that tells us these people don't know what they're talking about and that this is fake. And I think it comes down to reasoning and being able to. It almost comes down to the same way that you could have a Socratic conversation. It comes down to the way you think. There's a word I'm looking for, but I can't find it, so I'm just going to continue. It comes down to, are you able to question what you've been told? Because if you can ask the questions, asking the questions is the only way to find the answers. And I think when it comes to your health, that should be your number one place to ask the questions. So if you have some disease, right, and you go to your Western health doctor and they tell you this, okay, don't blindly follow that. Okay, go over to maybe go 2 doctors in Western, and then go explore all of these other methods that have been proven to work in some regard. And hey, you might talk to one of the people and be like, "Oh, this is fake," but at least explore the possibility. Don't blindly accept what anyone tells you. I think that is something that is a very basic principle that everyone should follow in life. Even if it's someone you trust, you should still question it.
Yeah, there's the experience of, well, let me actually rephrase that, because I think the reason that the work that I practice is by and large, and the whole body of the canon of this more alternative way of approaching the human health is dismissed, is because those in the more conventionally minded professions, they view the validity based on the aspect of reality that they are familiar with and believe in. And essentially you can break reality into various components, but one of the one component is the mass energy, right? The physical mass energy, and the dynamics of electromagnetic waves, and mathematics, and not really the mathematics, but physical matter, right? Now, if you dismiss the reality of subtle energy, because subtle energy is something that the only reason that what I do even works, because when you get into the more complex practice of my work, I do it long distance. I can test long distance. I can, I can present something with my mind to a person's system and test that. So the only reason that works is because there is a subtle energy dynamic that's happening with the body. So number one, they don't believe in subtle energy, and that's still on the mass energy side of the street of reality, right? They also don't believe in consciousness, really. Like, if you really think about it, like most people who are scientifically minded, or in medical establishment, whatever, they view consciousness as like this illusion as a result of matter happening. But really, consciousness and the mass energy spectrum of subtle and beyond are aspects of reality that I acknowledge, and that therefore I can interact with, and I can relate to, and I can see a much more holistic picture of what is actually going on with a person's condition. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think this all comes down to, you got to go to war with your own ideas. This is something I've been taught time and time again by mentors, through my mentorship program, and just through people I've met. You need to be able to attack your own ideas over and over and over until you've attacked them so much that you can be completely sure in your resolve. You need to be able, and so I think that it's very difficult to do. Attacking your own beliefs is one of the hardest skills to master, because it is a skill, and it is very difficult, because if you've grown up your entire life believing that 1 + 1 equals 2, and someone comes along and says, no, 1 + 1 equals 3, and here's my perspective on why, then you have to change your perspective of reality in order to explore that. Like, you have to change your fundamental view of reality to even explore it, not even accept it. And so it is very difficult to do. And I believe that it is one of the most important things you can ever do is question yourself more than you question anyone else. And I think that people do that on a insecurity level, but you have to do that on a belief level, which is a completely different game.
It's a different intention. It's like the intention. My intention is to believe the truth, right? And if that's the intention, then there's a very different result from my intention is to look the best, or my intention is to have people like what I think, right? If the truth is what you're after, which is what my teacher did for 40 years of his practice, And then he died and came back to life and got a huge download from wherever you go when you die. And then he's been driven to find the truth. And that's what he shared with me is that pursuit of what's true. Like what's really true. You know, why is this, why am I tired? Why am I unhappy? Why am I, why is it impossible for me to get over my ex? There's a whole equations in our neurology that can relate to something like that. And when you acknowledge the realm of consciousness and the realm of subtle energy as well as the physical, you can solve that equation pretty quickly. Like I was just at the psychic fair in Nevada City this last weekend, and this woman came to me, and she was distraught because she couldn't get over her ex. She knew that this was like a bad situation. This was like, you know, dynamics of just abuse, but she was still just like really attached. And what it ended up being, the dynamics behind that, if this is okay to share, is that she was still trying to change him. And her subtle energy system was reaching out and trying to kind of get a leverage on his system and changing him in some way. It doesn't really work, but that's often what we do when we don't think we can change someone physically, is we're just not okay with who they really are. And then we try to change them. And then even after that relationship dissolves, there's still a part of us trying to change the other person. And so we addressed that. We looked at that. We looked at some of these beliefs and equations in her subconscious that resulted in that. And once her system could see all of that, and it was able to neutralize it, and she was like in tears. She got over it. It was like this huge deal, and it was like 5-10 minutes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that getting over the past is something that is another skill you have to learn. And it is interesting how your mind can stay stuck somewhere.
Totally.
And I think a lot of this stuff just comes down to knowing who you are, knowing how you deal with things, because, you know, what's needed for me to get over something or someone is going to be very different than what's needed for you, because
I find that to be true.
We are fundamentally different people with a fundamentally different mind. And so you have to know yourself to the point of knowing how you function highly. And like me, okay, I learned no matter how much sleep I get, if I get up at a good time, I will have a much better day. And so, you know, sleeping in till 10 is a net negative compared to getting up early. And so you have to know yourself. I couldn't have been intentional with my time if I didn't know myself well enough to know how I needed to be intentional with it and how I needed to structure my time. Because, I mean, I realized, so some people might find this weird that I wake up, okay, I get ready for my day, I shower, eat. But the first thing I do after that is I edit a clip for my podcast. And those clips don't go out till 2 o'clock, but from 8 to 8:25, I am editing and getting a clip done because I love content. And so my day, like
Parker.
last night, I hadn't gotten a clip out right. And I was just feeling drowsy. Like there was no way I could get anything done.
Yeah.
And then at 6, I finished editing the clip. I put it out. I kicked up right up into gear.
Yeah.
And I was tired because it had been a long day and I hadn't had that mindset for the whole day. So I hadn't been able to keep going.
I see.
But still that strike of getting done that thing, it gave me the energy boost to get ready for this podcast, to do the things I needed to do. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't know myself.
That is so I just love how you're bringing this up, Parker. You know, the knowing yourself is incredibly powerful. Now, what often happens, what I notice with people, is that they have many parts of them. So there's a part of them, and you do too. I mean, everyone has these multiple aspects of ourself. But let's say you want have this clip for the podcast, and that's a really high priority for you. And what can happen for some people is that they have that as a priority, but then they switch gears, and another part of them that comes out, and that part of them is maybe of a lower nature. It's a part of them that's not as evolved as the higher aspects of their ultimate goals, but it'll pop up because there's something unresolved earlier in life. And that part will come up and be triggered by something. It'll say, actually, I need to eat cake right now, right? For whatever reason, right? Like, I can't do the podcast because I got to eat cake, in this example of this individual. Well, why is that? The addiction is a really big question. Why do people get addicted to whatever they're addicted to? And what I find is that when there's unresolved dynamics from the past, like trauma, it could be trauma, or it could just simply be some attachment that they have from when they were at an earlier age. Without that clarity like you say, knowing yourself to the point where, I even know this part of me that really feels attached to these various weird things that aren't really good for me ultimately. Once they know themselves there, and there's a process I take people through called the agape process that helps them to love and accept that part of themselves, and then feel the flow of life up through themselves, up through the compromised identity self that's lower, and align it with the goals of the higher aspects of themselves. And in that process, they can feel integrated, they can feel whole. And a great deal of the friction that we talked about earlier can be reduced. It's a really potent process.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not to the point where I know the cause of these little things, but I have gotten to the point where I know I can identify them. And I know that for myself, if I want to stay efficient, it's all about my mind telling me to be efficient before the day has even begun. It's about me right before I go to bed, scheduling things out. So I have this mental breakdown of everything I need to do. And so when I get up, I can tackle it. And I've realized the best thing for me is to have a constant cycle of events, and have things scheduled. So if I'm going to take some time to hang out with my brother, it's going to be in my schedule so that I'm okay. This isn't just me going off and doing whatever, because then that lets my brain get distracted. This is an intentional point from this point in the day to this point in the day where I am spending time doing this. And then the other thing for me is I just love keeping things going. So it's okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, then I have a 5-minute break, then I'm doing that. Then I have it's no break. Okay, now I'm doing this. And now I'm doing this, and now I'm doing this. And the next thing I know is it's only 2 p.m. and I've done everything I needed to do. And now I get to dive into the things that are like if I can get to the point, which I have been able to, by 2 p.m., all of the number one priority things are done. And now I can dive into, the side project, the other side project, and hey, there will be more high priority responsibilities that come as my life goes on. But the entire point is that I've learned how to be efficient for me. But you've got to learn how to be efficient for you. And so I don't think it is a great thing that we have these, resources that are like how to be efficient, how to maximize your day. I think it should be, I don't think that giving a specific technique. It should be, okay, explore, here's 10 possibilities that may work for you due to, let's say these are the 10 that across the 10,000 people we surveyed. This is what works best for the most of them, these 10. But you may have to, combine them and cycle through them. But okay, test 3 days of this, 3 days of this, and 3 days of this, and go through it. But I think for me, it was just through my mentorship program, struggling with efficiency there, and then the last few months being really focused on the podcast, but figuring out that really I only need to spend an hour and a half on the podcast max per day, and that I was spending 4 hours on it, and then taking that time and being like, you know what? I'm laying in bed. It's like midnight, and you know that spark you get in the middle of the night when you just lay there and you're like, I want to go take on the world. I want to go run a marathon. Well, I think there's something to that. I think it has a little bit to do with the regret of your day, because when I get everything done with my day, I can just go right to sleep. I mean, no, actually, I can't. That's a lie. My mind is running like, oh, I want to do this tomorrow, but it's not. I want to get up and do this right now. It's okay. I'm going to schedule out my. See, that's one thing I think is powerful for me. Is doing it right before I go to sleep. It's the last thing I do. I schedule out my day. Hey, the screen time right before I go to sleep, probably not the best, but it works for me. And it gives me that intentionality to not be laying in bed thinking of all the things I need to do now. If I think of something I need to do, I grab my phone, and if I don't want to actually schedule it in, I have a checklist. So I have my schedule, and then I have a checklist of things that I can substitute in during the free times of my day. And so I schedule that time in, and so I throw that in there, and so I think that where was I? Where was I going? Where was I before that?
Well, I'm not sure, but I'm really curious about something that you said a few times about your mentorship. And I got to tell you, like the mentors that I've had in my life have been absolutely instrumental in me becoming who I am today, and someone that I respect and value. And so, what has mentorship been meant for you? Like, how has that experience?
Yeah. So a couple of different things. First off, I am a member of a program called Apogee Strong. I've talked about it like on every podcast episode I've done.
Yeah.
I joined that in May of 2021, and it was a year-long program. I graduated, and I got to stay in the program as a battle squad leader who leads accountability calls on Sundays. And through that program, program was co-founded by Tim Kennedy and Matt Boudreau. Matt Boudreau has been in was in the education game for years and years and years, worked at Stanford, worked at all these high-level universities, and then he eventually left that to start schools in the Acton network. Have you heard of that? It is a project-based learning education system, which is fundamentally different, and it builds much more leadership. But then eventually he talked to Tim Kennedy about creating a mentorship program for young men, and that's what Apogee Strong is. They recently launched a dad's program, and they're working on launching a program for young women. But that program is through that program, I've gotten the incredible mentorship from Matt, and Tim has a bunch of other things going on, so we don't get to talk to him very much. But I've gotten to a lot. We have weekly calls every single Friday, where the first hour of that call we have a guest mentor. I mean, I got to talk to Jeff Hoffman, who is a billionaire, on that, and so that's been one of my main experiences. But my other experiences, which has been really valuable to me, is a friend my parents made when they were in network marketing by the name of Rodney Farrell. Rodney works in the digital marketing space, but his entire goal is just to provide value to people. He's a business genius. He's taught me, he taught me something that completely changed my mindset around how business functions. And he has been one of my biggest mentors, because a lot of the things he does, I feel the need and want to emulate in my life. And so I do something with him a couple times a month. Well, I got to go with him on a trip to San Francisco to meet with a lady, got to sign an NDA, which is pretty fun. But we did, and so I've been working with him there, and my experience with mentorship has been nothing short of incredible. And a lot of the podcast guests I've had on, I actually met through the Apogee program. And it has changed my life, revolutionized how I thought of who I was and how I looked at the world. And every mentor has had their own unique impact, and it's been incredible. My journey with mentorship has been nothing but amazing.
Yeah. And so what's the youngest someone can join this program?
I think it's like somewhere around 12.
12, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think the oldest guy to be in it is like 25, but he finagled his way in. You want to hear this? This is an interesting story. So he's a young man named Aditya. I had him on the third episode of my podcast, where we dove into Eastern religious stuff. It was really crazy. It was a really great episode. But he found out about the program. He's out in India through like Instagram, watching like Matt and hearing about this stuff. And he enrolled his brother because he was too old. And then he just started doing all the challenges and all of the things that are a part of the mentorship program. And then eventually he had his brother just ask Matt if he could be enrolled as a member. And man, he's one of the most like incredible people you will meet at his age. He wakes up at 5 a.m. every day, and he's done a crazy journey where he did like all sorts of crazy things, going to monasteries and stuff, just doing crazy stuff out in India. And I'm gonna talk to him sometime this week. I haven't talked to him in a bit, but really interesting guy.
Awesome.
And he finagled his way in. That's one of my favorite things to talk about, especially just because he's so incredible. And like one time Matt couldn't make it to a call, and you know who Matt picked to host the call instead of him was Aditya. It was awesome.
Neat. Well, do you know what time it is?
It is 11:10.
Okay, cool. Nice. Good to know. I was a little nervous there. I didn't want to miss my next appointment. We're good. The potency of finding someone that you trust. And for me, it was someone that I trusted more than myself, because I think my saving grace is that I knew I was full of shit. Like I was just like, I wanted to pretend like I had everything figured out, and growing up, I just knew that wasn't true. So when I found someone who actually like knew more than I did in something I cared about learning, I just surrendered to that process, and I listened to them and I followed their advice, and that's how I was able to get beyond the limitations that I had at the time, is trusting and following advice from someone else.
Yeah.
That's worthy of that trust. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I swear this stuff comes up on every podcast. I tell this, I think I tell this to like every single episode, because people ask me about the mentorship program. So my journey into mentorship, I had done some work with Rodney like five years ago, doing a little work with him when I was little, because we just work similarly. We have similar personalities. We're both very upbeat, and he's one of my favorite people to be around. But my real mentorship journey started, my mom found out about the Apogee program, and she asked me if I wanted to enroll, and I said to her, sure. I said, sure, whatever.
Whatever, sure.
So she said, hey, Parker,
Great, let's do it.
Here's the website. Take a look and let me know if you want me to enroll you. I said, sure. Little did I know how impactful that would be, and it's interesting for me to look back, because one thing that's come with my intentionality with my time is intentionality with the people I spend my time around. I don't have friends my age, really. I have one friend who lives in Wisconsin that I met through the Apogee program. He's my only really close friend who is my age. The people I enjoy hanging out with most are 29 and 42. And so that intentionality has come through that. And it's interesting to look back at myself at that time and being like, before I joined that program, I was probably one of the people that I would choose to cut out of my life today.
Right. I'll give you a download on some interesting things that I've learned, because you mentioned intentionality a lot. And there's a model of looking at the world that is kind of popularized by Ken Wilber, who has he's a guy that has synthesized the different information and maps of reality from ancient, the ancient Tibetans to all kinds of different, psychology, you name it. He has attempted to synthesize the valuable insights in it into this program, into this map of reality. And so Ken Wilber talks about how there's these three degrees of subtlety, right? So the first is the one we're familiar with. It's concrete. So there's this concrete reality. It includes the electromagnetic spectrum. It includes hard things. It includes our bodies and the physical reality that most people, it's hard to deny that exists. Then there's this next layer, which is the realm of dreams. And it's actually it's the consciousness. There's a consciousness associated with it that shows up in our dreams, and it's called the subtle or the astral, right?
Yeah.
And then beyond that is a realm that when I experience it is because I've done some meditative practices that have supported me in being able to sense and experience my reality through the lens of the causal. It's called the causal plane. And what it feels like, it's like there's a realm that is pure light, and yet there's nothing for the light to bounce off of. And so it looks black, but it's a pregnant with potential. It's the realm of pure potential, right? Nothing actual, just potential. And what happens is when we interact, when we hold an intention long enough, that intention influences this realm of pure potential. And that intentionality that you speak so much of, what could be happening is that you're holding an intention for something to occur. And what that intention does is it draws the infinite potential energy out of that realm and into the realm of your dreams. And then you're writing, you're articulating, you're imagining. So your imagination is getting clearer and clearer about what it is that you want and how to make that happen. And then through your actions and your schedule, you're bringing that dream into reality. And so you're starting with this pure potential and intention, and you're bringing that into more and more concreteness until it lands in the reality of your experience.
Interesting. And it's interesting because it is kind of a closed loop where the intentionality helps to create the dream.
Yeah.
But then the intentionality helps bring the dream back into reality.
Yeah. It's that effort. You're using your physical energy to do your part, and the subtle energy influences the experience of us on a physical plane. And so there's all kinds of synchronicities that people call them. And I think what most people think of as synchronicity is it's probably there's more to it than most people are aware of. And yet that is a dynamic that does happen, is bringing from your intention into reality in a way that would seem impossible if there wasn't some kind of force operating on the world we experience behind the scenes.
Yeah, and you hear about that a lot, and the term that's thrown around is manifestation.
Manifestation. And of course, it takes your physical waking. You wake up in the morning and you do things, and that's part of the process.
Absolutely.
So I think that the secret and the different people who talk about manifestation, they do so from almost a naive place, because many of them don't acknowledge the work and the effort and the sweat and the struggle that it takes to actually make things happen in the physical concrete realm.
Absolutely. And I think it almost comes down to, so I was talking to a guy on the podcast by the name of Anthony Trucks, former NFL player, now a keynote speaker who's just absolutely incredible. And what he talks about is the dark work you do and the tough things you do. And his whole thing is that you've got to do the work in the dark, the hard things, the hard work, in order to shine in the light. But I think that comes down to the fact that, that most of the time, the hard work you do, no one's going to see. No one's going to see that. When you look at, some successful businessman, you're just like, oh, everything's easy because you're so successful, right? But what
Right.
a lot of people fail to see is the dark nights, the sleepless nights, the dark days that they spend working to where they are. And so I think it comes down to the fact that even with that realm of pure potential, no one sees the work you do to release that potential.
Yes.
They only see the potential that is released.
Yes. And it's awe-inspiring when one does see it. And yet it takes both. Because it wouldn't have happened without the intention and the clarity of the possibility of it wouldn't be possible without having a strong and consistent enough intention. So I think, Parker, that the way that you're approaching intentionality is something that is going to do nothing but good for you and the people that you care about and the people you influence. It's really an incredibly powerful place to start.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to like see, talk to these super successful people. And here's the thing. This is one thing that I say: get in the room with successful people. Get in that room, however you need to do it. I heard a story from a guy who's quite controversial, but I heard a story, and he was talking about there was this guy out on the streets in Romania who asked him if he could take photos of his nice car, right? Mm-hmm. And then after he took the photos, he showed the photos to the guy and said to him, would you like me to email you the photos? And the guy was like, no, I'm good. But then he decided to ask the guy, because he's doing this all for free, why are you taking photos of these super nice cars for people? And he's like, because then I have all the emails of all the wealthy people in Romania. And that was his way of getting in the room. And I was lucky enough through the Apogee Strong program to get into the room with these highly successful people I get to talk to every week. And so, and I think one of the things that's so powerful is the power of being around these people, because you could be completely unintentional about it. You could just happen to be in the room. But the fact of the matter is the people you're around shape who you become. And so if you're around a bunch of successful people, your chances of being successful in your own life is so much greater, because of the fact that your subconscious, even consciously, if you're intentional about it, then it's even crazier. Your subconscious absorbs the information it receives, and it turns that into reality.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I think I'm all done with the time I have available to talk. So,
man, thank you so much for coming on here.
So glad to come, Parker. It's just great to see you, and what an example of youth and of setting one self in a direction of success at a young age. That is. There are so many struggles that people set up for themselves down the line because of what the choices that they're making at your age that are different from the ones you're making. So you're gonna have an easier time because of the human software that you're building right now. So many people build maladaptive software in their teenage years, and the software you're building is one of success, and it's just great to witness. I'm privileged to be a witness to that journey and to see it firsthand.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys at home for watching. I've been talking to Gabriel Moss, and this has been The Conversation Station.